we're going to talk about JSON support in Java EE8. My name is Dmitry Kornilov. I'm from Oracle. There is my Twitter account if you want to follow me and read about how bad the latest episode from some famous series was, then you're welcome. And this is Werner Keil. He's going to, basically we are going to talk together about JSON support in Java EE8. And this is a very important slide. Basically, this is a disclaimer. What it says is that you don't have to trust me. You don't have to trust Oracle. You don't have to trust anyone, right? Because some part of our talk is about proposals, and these proposals could not be officially a part of a product, which will be available later. And if you make a business decision based on my talk, then you're in trouble. Sorry about that. But I'm just saying that not everything is proposal, right? Some part of the talk is about things which are already there, and another part of the talk about the future things. So now about the speakers. This is Werner Keil. He is a consultant. Maybe you should introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm an open source evangelist, Java EE and Agile coach. I also did a little bit of DevOps coaching for a company that's just on the other side of the street, Vistion. I think they also have a talk here. And I was a spec lead of JSR 363 that just finished about 2 months ago. And I also heard that I'm now also in a different category re-elected to the executive committee. So I was individual EC member, and now there's a new category called associate member, and I'm a member of this new associate category for at least a year.
So I just want to add that we are working with Werner on some JSRs, and he's an expert in JSON processing, JSON binding as well, I suppose. It's okay. And this is me, software developer at Oracle. I am actually a spec lead of JSON processor and JSON binding specifications. I put hardcore gamer there. He put creative cosmopolitan there. I have to have some answer. Didn't know what actually to put there, so I put hardcore game. I like playing games, right? So I was awarded as outstanding spec lead for 2016, which I'm very proud of, and I'm also an Eclipse Link project commit. Thanks a lot. I'm not sure what you will do after we finish. Okay, so this is the agenda. What are we going to talk today, right? We'll have a little bit of introduction about JSON, what is that, why do we need it, the current state, how it's supported in Java, and blah, 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 so on. After that, the first half of the talk is dedicated to JSON processing, and Werner will handle that. And the second part is dedicated to JSON binding, and I will talk about this. At the end, if we have time, but time is relative here, right? So I suppose that we do have time. QA session. So please keep your questions if you have any. I'm sure that the talk is very clean and you won't have any questions, but anyway, if you have something, please keep it to the end, okay? Someone is raising your hand already. Yeah, he's just stretching. It's okay. So let me start. A little bit of introduction. What is JSON? Maybe it's a bit of confusion. Maybe some people don't understand what JSON is. So this guy, this is JSON. This is true, you know. You know who is that? Friday the 13th, one of my favorite movies. His surname is Voorhees. It's a cool guy. This is also JSON. It's another one. Actually, it's even better. This is JSON born, so JSON-B. Cool. Yeah. And another one. So this guy. This is not a JSON, but you know, this is the official logo of JSON binding. Right? So today we are going to talk about how these guys support Enterprise Java 8, or how Enterprise Java 8 support these guys. Interesting? But remember the second slide, don't trust me. This is basically, I was making a joke. And we are going to talk about boring stuff like this. Right? So JSON, what is JSON? JavaScript object notation. Very simple format, which natively maps to JavaScript. So it's subset of JavaScript. Of course, you can say that this is not, because there are some hidden characters and this kind of stuff. Not relevant. It's a subset of JavaScript. A lot of people are using it in their projects to transfer data between services and this kind of stuff. It's very lightweight. It has only 3 objects. So object, array, and value. And sorry, it's a bit strange because I need to use cursor. Basically, all of these objects are presented here. So object starts with curly bracket. So we have 2 here, one main, one another, one small one here. Array, which starts with square bracket, is here. Array, phone numbers is an array of 1 element. And value is just a value. We have a key, we have colon, we have value. So it's very simple. Oh, JSON born is here. So I was only partially lying about that I'm not going to use these guys in my presentation. And how Java currently support JSON, right? Basically, JSON supports split in 2 parts, JSON processing and JSON binding. This is more or less the same with XML. We have JAX-P parser and we have JAX-B binder. With JSON, we also have JSON processor, JSON binding, right? And JSON processing is already a part of Java Enterprise Edition. It's part of Java Enterprise Edition 7. But JSON binding is not. So currently, Java Enterprise Edition doesn't have a full JSON support. But it's going to be added in Java Enterprise Edition 8, and we are going to talk about it. So now I'm passing my place here to Werner, and he's going to talk about JSON processing, and I'm going to actually go there and play with my phone, okay?
Okay. Yeah, I'm a member of the JSON-P 1.1 expert group, and I'm also the only expert group member who was also in the previous version that is already in Java EE 7. So JSON-P consists of the streaming API and the object model. So as you saw, you can compare them on the XML side to stacks as opposed to DOM. So JSON parser supports the streaming way of input, so it's very useful when you don't know the exact structure of the JSON file. So for example, I'm also using it currently with a customer where we test against Spring Boot matrix, and that matrix also comes in JSON, but the matrix can change. There can be new matrix added, more or less at runtime. So that's where JSON streaming is obviously handy, because unlike binding or DOM objects, you can't really bind to an object. You don't know the exact object until you actually access the JSON string. Yeah, it's created using the JSON singleton. So all of JSON processing has a singleton factory method called JSON. Everything else, as of now, is interfaces, and unless there are strong reasons against that, we also plan to keep that in 1.1. So the parser has well-defined states. It always starts with the start. Array start is for an array of objects, an actual object, and it can be things like key name, then you get the name part, and the value of either a string or a number, and some special states for binary values like true or false. So here we take an example again with our friend JSON-born. So the start object is the beginning at the first curly brace. Then you get the key name. Then you get a value, it's a string. You get another key name, which is the field age. And then you have a numeric value. Then you have another key name. Then the array starts. You have another object inside the array. And then again you have key name, key string, key name, key string, and the end of the object, so that's the internal object, the end of the array, and then you have the outer object at its end. So here, this is how it looks like in Java code. So you do parser.next. Usually you would do that in a loop. It's similar to Java collections, so it has a has next, and this way you can basically find out whether you're at the end of the JSON string or not. So that's very similar to the Java collection API. So you do parser.next and you get a key name. Then you get a string. The string value, which is JSON-born. Then when you do next, the next is again a key name. Get string, yeah, you can actually do get string, but here, in case of get string, you could actually do, yeah. So with the number, you then have the option of using getInt, but since JSON processing supports Java SE8, if you want full precision, in this case, you could also use big decimal. Of course, for an age, it's probably an overkill, but if you want to do numeric values, so for example, we use it together with financial APIs, and of course, with financial values, you would not use int or double, you would usually use big decimal for not losing any precision. So JSON generator is the opposite, if you want. It generates a JSON in a streaming way to output sources, so it's similar to the XML stream writer of stacks. Again, you create it from the singleton object JSON via JSON create generator and a generator factory. A generator factory also allows you to configure it, for example, to beautify the JSON in certain ways. So the object model API is equivalent to DOM. So there, in most cases, you will also have the whole JSON string in memory. So when you have very large strings, of course, that may be a disadvantage, or you have to be careful not to run out of memory if you really deal with big data. It allows method chaining, and unlike the streaming version, which only has a certain limited way of type safety, it's fully type safe. So that also means you cannot mix an array and an object. So this is on the left side how you call it from your Java API, and that's the resulting JSON string on the right. Now, JSON-P 1.1, JSON-B is a completely new API that will be introduced as part of Java EE 8, as opposed to JSON-P, which was already in Java EE 7, and the API has been fairly mature and complete. So you can more think of an evolutionary rather than a revolutionary increase. That's also why it's 1.1 at the moment and not JSON-P 2, which would definitely be a number jump that wouldn't justify, because we are adding new features, especially some of the new RFCs for JSON pointer, JSON patch, JSON merge patch, and similar standards that have been evolved from the IETF that standardizes those JSON standards. So new standards have been added, and the JSON-P standard more or less mirrors those. So that's also why in some cases the JSON-P JSR may have so far a smaller spec, because a lot of those things are specified, of course, in RFCs, and it would not make that much sense to simply carbon copy the entire RFC and print it into the spec. Of course, we could do that, but in most cases, the JSON-P expert group and spec lead in 1.0 decided to not do that. That's why JSON-P is one of the standards with a relatively small spec document, and most of it is actually, at the moment, found only in the Java doc of the API. And there are some minor improvements, for example, adding transformation operations to JSON objects and arrays. So JSON pointer supports the RFC 6901. It's a little bit similar to XPath in XML. So it's a path-like structure. It has some special characters that you may not use unless you substitute them in your JSON string, because they have special meanings. So here would be an example, for example, having two of our JSONs that we saw, one being a maniac killer, and, well, of course, JSON-born also kills for a living, so some people may interpret that he's also a killer, but let's just say, for the sake of our example, he's not a maniac killer. So was the string not replaced in the slide? I thought it would be replaced. But basically, the operation of JSON pointer means that maniac killer should be replaced with super agent. Yeah, JSON patch, it's a little bit similar to either SVN or nowadays, in most cases, Git patches that you can apply to your repository. So this is something very similar to a JSON document. And it's based on the underlying HTTP patch method. So here we take our example again of having the JSON from Friday the 13th, having JSON born, and, well, somehow another secret agent slipped in. So here we have the replacement. Here we replace the profession of JSON born with super agent. And then with the remove operation, we remove the other super agent simply because his name isn't Jason but James. So these are the most important links. Please, as a little caveat, some of you may have heard that Java.net is not going to be around for a very long time. So the GitHub project, and you will also hear from Dmitry later on, there's something similar for JSON-B. So the GitHub project JSON-P, and for JSON binding, there's one JSON-B. Those are here to stay unless GitHub should go out of business someday. With Java.net, keep in mind the safe harbor statement. So we simply don't know. We cannot say, but it is quite likely that, like Google Code, Java.net should be either read-only or completely gone. And everything that's now on the Java.net pages will either go somewhere else when the umbrella Java EE specifications and Glassfish do, or they may subsequently move to GitHub. So we already created these spaces to be safe, and unless there's a strategic decision to move certain parts like Glassfish to another domain, you will probably find them ending up in GitHub. Okay, over to you.
Yeah, so basically Werner finished talking about JSON-P, and I'm going to talk about JSON-B now. Okay, so basically JSON-P already exists, JSON-B is a proposal, right? So it's going to be included in Java EE 8. Anyway, the spec is past the public review already, and we already have a reference implementation now, working on optimizations and this kind of stuff. But anyway, what is JSON-B? Right? It's JAX-B in the JSON world. It's all around converting Java objects to JSON documents and vice versa. So it's serialization and deserialization. It consists of, let's say, two parts: default mapping and customized mapping. So default mapping is, we try to do it in a way that you don't really need to, even you don't need to know what JSON format is. So you just take your Java type and serialize it, right? So default mapping is a set of default rules suitable for the most of the cases, I would say 95% of the cases. But for the rest of the 5%, we have customization API, it's quite rich. We have annotations, we have programmatic API, runtime API, to customize things. We even have low-level serializers and deserializers, right? So JSON-B and JSON-P were like brothers. We are, serving the same purpose. And JSON-B actually uses JSON-P as a parser inside, right? And this is that guy from the beginning. This is official JSON-B logo. Some words about default mapping, right? I already said what is that. So this is how mapping is done if no annotations present and no configurations passed to JSON-B. It covers this scope, right? I'll cover it later. Important to mention here is how easy to create JSON-B engine with default settings. It's just one line of code. You can see it here. One line of code that you have JSON-B engine. What is JSON-B engine? JSON-B engine is the main class you are going to use to serialize and deserialize your objects. It has a variety of to-JSON and from-JSON methods. So to-JSON is serialization, from-JSON is deserialization, and they are overwritten, so you can serialize, deserialize from string, from a reader, input stream, or wherever else is there. And here comes a sample. Basically, the sample, you've seen it already. We have our JSONs there, right? But the difference is, in JSON-P world, we were operating some JSON-P objects, JSON array, JSON object and these kind of things. Here we are using Java objects. So imagine that you have a person object which describes a person. It has name, profession, age. We're creating two persons there. One's for a bad guy, another one for a good guy, making an array. And the last two strings here is actually creating the engine and serializing it, serializing the array. And the result is this, very easy. According to the spec, these types are supported. So basic types like primitive wrappers and primitives itself, and specific types, which are specific Java types, big types, URL, URI, and optionals. Date classes also supported, and you can see it. So this table has two columns. First column is type, and another one is format. So you see that classes from Java2Days package supported and from Java time package. And formats, they look different, but they have one thing in common. All of them are ISO formats, right? Important thing to mention here, if a time portion is not present, JSON-B doesn't add anything, right? So if you create a calendar without time, it will be serialized as a date. No time portion is going to be there. And here is a sample. So first sample is Java2Days date. So you see that it's converted with actually time because Java2Days date is actually a number. The second one covers the use case I was talking about, calendar without a time portion. And last three is Java time classes. We're going to be serialized to these funny looking strings, but this is what ISO format is doing. JSON-B supports arrays and collections. This is the list of all types supported by the spec. I'm not going to list all of them. It's basically more or less all collection types in Java. And it natively supports JSON-P types. So basically, you can create a JSON object, JSON-P object, and use JSON-B to serialize it. So instead of using JSON generator or whatever object model and JSON writer after that, you just can call JSON-B to JSON and pass there an object. And it uses generator in behind, but this is much easier. It supports classes, definitely. So what kind of classes? It supports public and protected nested and static nested classes, anonymous classes only for serialization. Inheritance is supported. So if you have object inherit something, everything is serialized, right? And for default mapping, we require that this type has a default constructor. If it doesn't have it, then this is not the end of the world. You can use customizations. We have special customization which helps in this use case, but default mapping can handle that. What kind of fields we support inside the class? So basically final fields only for serialization. Static fields and transient fields are not supported, they're skipped. Null fields are skipped. But again, we're talking about default mapping. If you would like to serialize null fields, very special customization for that. About the order, fields serialized in alphabetical order called lexicographical. And in case of inheritance, parent fields are placed before child class fields, so I call it JSON-B respects parents. And here is a sample how it respects parents. So we have a parent class, look parent B, parent A fields. I especially put it in this order, and it's going to be serialized as parent A, parent B, so lexicographical order. And we have a child class, which extends parent. We have two fields again, child B, child A. And the result is here, so parent class fields on top. This is how JSON-B respects parents. And child's fields after that. And within the class, fields are sorted alphabetically. Now let's talk about scope and field access strategy. So how JSON-B by default chooses which fields are serialized, which are not. This looks a bit complicated. So I'll try to explain it a bit using respectness again, right? So JSON-B by default respects getters and setters, meaning that if a getter exists for a field, it will use it for serialization. And it also respects the visibility of the getter. So if getter is there, but it's private or protected, in this case, JSON-B just skip the field because it can't do it, respects the visibility. If getter, that's talking about serialization only, okay? If getter is not present, then it looks at the field itself, the property. And again, it respects its visibility. Only public fields are serialized, right? So if visibility level is different, then the field is skipped. And the last thing is virtual thing. The field means that if getter setter pair exists, but there is no particular property, then JSON-B uses this field. Let's take a look at a sample. So imagine that we have a class with properties, self-descriptive names. I can't see anything here. I need to see what I'm talking about, so let's better do it this way. Let's quickly go through the properties. So public final field, right? It's serialized because final is supported. Public field, no getter setters, it's okay. But private final field is not supported because JSON-B respects visibility, and private, he doesn't touch private fields. Static fields are skipped. Public with no getter is serialized. Public with private getter, oh, this is a funny situation. We have public field with private getter. It's more or less impossible. But anyway, it's not going to be serialized because JSON-B looks at the getter is private, bye-bye. Public null field is skipped because it's null. It would be serialized, it's okay, but it's null, by default it's skipped. Private with no getter, again, no getter, so fields visibility is private, skip it. Private with public getter is a standard Java Bean thing, of course it's supported, and the last pair is actually that virtual field is also okay. That's it about default mapping. Now we jump into customization part. Not long until the end, it's okay. I see you're a bit bored. So basically, how JSON-B engine can be customized? Two ways: annotations or runtime configuration using these two objects listed there, JSON-B config or JSON-B builder. JSON-B config class is there, actually configuration is holding all configuration. It has some methods to add configuration there. And when you constructed it, you can use it in JSON-B builder with config method to create your customized engine. With provider is also there. This is to specify another JSON-P provider. What can we customize? We can customize property names, property order. We can ignore some properties. We can customize on null handling, I was touched it a bit. Constant instantiation, this is the situation if we don't have a default no argument constructor. We can customize this visibility field policy I was talking about to make it easier. Date number formats, binary encoding, and some low-level stuff. I'll touch it a bit later. So basically, all these customizations are also provided by other frameworks which exist now in the market. All of them. Right? So because when we designed JSON-B, we actually were communicating with authors of other frameworks, and they participated. They are part of our expert group. So we just took everything which is good and added it to the standard. So property names customization is pretty much easy. JSON-B property annotation. So look at the sample. If you don't like first name, in order to be name, then just place JSON-B property annotation there, specify the name used in JSON document. It can be put on a getter or setter for deserialization. So strange situation is possible that you serialize in the same field using one name and deserializing using another name. If you want it, it's possible to do. It's possible also to define how JSON-B handles the naming conversion globally. So we support things called property naming strategies. So if you like your fields to be separated, words separated with underscores or wherever, you can choose a lowercase with underscore strategy or wherever. Or you even create your OR1 and plug it to JSON-B using with property naming strategy method of JSON-B config class. Order of the fields is also customizable. By default, lexicographical is used. You can choose a free lexicographical any and reverse, which is opposite to lexicographical. Any can give you a little bit of performance boost, but it's just a little bit. But anyway, if you don't care, maybe it's okay. How to specify it? JSON-B property order annotation on the class, or JSON-B config, very special method for that. Ignoring properties, JSON-B transient annotation, especially for this case. Visibility, this is related to what I was talking about, respecting getter-setters, respecting visibility, and so on. If you don't like it, you can create your own strategy, which, for instance, serializes all the fields. Doesn't matter what kind of visibility level we have. And you plug it in using annotation on the class, JSON-B visibility, or JSON-B config with property visibility strategy. The interface is here. Null handling is also easy. Null fields by default are skipped, but as I said, it's possible to fix it. JSON-B nullable annotation is for that. Can be placed on the field, can be placed on the class level. Can be changed globally within the engine using JSON-B config. Custom instantiation covers the situation if you don't have constructor with no arguments. So basically, class can be constructed using constructor with arguments or some static factory method, as it's on the sample here. So you annotate this method using JSON-B creator annotation. And in this case, take a look at the sample. So we have a small JSON here, and customer is actually the class which has to be created the custom way. So when JSON-B engine meets it, it finds out that it's a type of customer, and customer has JSON-B creator annotation. It calls this method, and if it has parameters, then parameters are taken from JSON there with a corresponding name. If the names doesn't match, you can use JSON-B property annotation on the parameter of this method to match the parameter names. Datetime format, again, this is a common use case, so changing the date format. We have two annotations for that, JSON-B date format, JSON-B number format, or we can change it globally in JSON-B config. We have two methods with date format and with locale. Binary encoding, if you have binary data, byte encoding is using by default. We have a choice of base 64 and base 64 URL. The sample is here. We have a special method with binary data strategy in JSON-B config. iJSON. iJSON is this basically standard. This is a restricted profile of JSON used for internet communication. You can read about this here. JSON-B fully supports it with 3 exceptions, these exceptions. But you can switch it to full compliant mode using with strict iJSON methods with true parameter in JSON-B config. We're coming closer to the end, so adapters. This is quite a powerful feature for customization. It's inspired by JAX-B adapters. We have JAX-B type adapters. So basically, we are talking about if you have a class you don't have access to, or you don't like how it's customized. You create another one which you like how it's customized, or it belongs to your package or whatever. Add annotations there, can support annotations, and write a converter which converts this class to this one, right? So this is JSON-B adapter, right? You can plug it in using annotation, JSON-B type adapter, or you can use JSON-B config with adapters method. It actually supports a list of instances of adapters. So on the sample, I have only one there, but it can be a list. And the last thing I was going to talk about, if you really need a low-level, fine-grained customization, you can use type serializer and type deserializer. So why it's low-level? Because you see it uses JSON generator passed there and JSON parser with the JSON-P classes Werner was talking about. So you can really do whatever you want. But you have to be careful because, for instance, parser cursor position is very important, and if you mess it around, then you won't be able to read the rest of your document. These things are pluggable to the engine as everything using annotations, JSON-B type serializer and JSON-B type deserializer, or JSON-B config with serializers, again a list of instances, and with deserializers, again a list of instances. I actually prepared a demo with adapters, serializers, generics for Java 1. If you would like to take a look, this is the URL. It's on my GitHub. If you would like to play with it, you're welcome. And this is the last slide. So useful links. So JSON-B website. We currently have it on GitHub, organization on GitHub. JCP org page, if you want to track the changes in the spec, who is the spec lead, who is the expert group, what's the state of the spec, and so on. And specification project on JavaNet currently. That's it. I don't know, do we have time or not, but we actually used slightly less than 50 minutes. So if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer. Please. I'm sorry, I don't hear anything. So shall we? Yeah.
Thank you. Could you make a short comparison in terms of performance with other libraries?
In a couple of words, JSON-B is currently slower about 4 or 5 times comparing to Jackson. But this is not optimized version, right? So we only started with optimization, and hopefully we will beat it.
What was the takeaway that we should receive at the end of your lecture? Because you say that it's slower than the concurrent frameworks, and you just present us that framework with no insight that we should take away from this. Maybe you should tell us the really good parts of this framework.
So I think you misunderstood my talk. I was saying that the framework is very good. I didn't say anything bad there. Actually, JSON-B, for instance, it's as I said, it took all the good parts from the other frameworks, right? And we are making a standard out of that. And you know, the advantages of a standard that you can use different implementation of the standard, you can change it easily, right? And you are sure that the application you are written using the standard will work fine on different application service and so on. So this is what we are doing. And don't misunderstand me, I didn't say anything wrong about that. About the performance, I just said you the truth. And we haven't finished working on the implementation now, right? And we still have time to optimize it as much as it will become comparable with other frameworks. Actually, we didn't test it with other frameworks. We actually compared it with Jackson as the fastest one, right? So maybe it's already faster than others.
Thank you.
Okay, these folks are not going to hear the nice answer I'm going to give to this guy in green t-shirt, so that's okay.
So currently, if you want to tweak some configuration in the most of the parsers, or not parsers, but basically Jackson or JSON, we use the JAX-B annotations. So are these going to be also respected by JSON-B, or we have only to use?
No.
No.
JSON-B uses its own annotations. Sorry about that.
No problem.
In the real world, we have a lot of data, different JSONs, but in many cases we have to deal with different character sets and encoding pages. You know, the information about this framework. Do you intend to offer some easier way to convert between different character sets or something like this? I'm sure that you understand my question. I don't see anything from there.
I understand your question. Basically, the conversion between character set is not a goal of JSON-B specification. So we are not planning to deal with that. It has to be covered somehow in the lower level. If Werner can add something to that, so.
Well, that's also similar to the question about performance, that the spec itself makes sure that on the API level it's compatible. But similar to, for example, when you deal with JDBC as such, or JPA do not cover different character sets or encodings that you may have in one database as opposed to the other. So that's usually up to the implementation.
So basically, on the performance question, we can try this guy. We're suggesting him to make his own implementation, which is faster than Jackson, yes. Right? Or participate in our reference implementation as open source. You can try to, participate there, optimize it, and make it as faster as Jackson or even faster.
Yeah. We saw that on Java SE, for example. A company named BEA used to have a faster JVM. As a matter of fact, they were all now acquired by Oracle, so now I think it's the default. But there was a time when the BEA application server had a JVM that was more performant than the default one by Sun.
That's true. More questions? You wanted to have questions, but after that you changed your mind. It's okay. You want to ask Werner, please? This guy wants to ask a question.
You said that configuration can be can a configuration be mixed with annotation about JSON-B?
Definitely.
JSON-B. Sorry.
Definitely. You can use both. You can use annotations and you can use runtime configurations.
Okay. And
what? Annotations. Basically, lower level has more.
I think JSON-B had something like mixins. Do you have something similar? So imagine you have one object that in different cases has to be serialized.
Mixins.
Yes.
This is not Jackson. This is, I think, Gensen. Or maybe Jackson, or maybe I don't remember well. Basically, you can do the same thing with adapters. More or less the same things.
Mm-hmm. So if you have, again, one Java type and want in different cases to have it serialized different way. For example, in one case you have half the properties exported or serialized. In the other case, the other half. You can do that with adapters?
I think so. Yes, I think so. So, but in this case, you need to create two JSON-B engines. One is for one use case, another one for another
Yeah, there are
use case.
different use cases,
Yeah.
basically.
So yes, you can do it.
Okay.
Any more questions, folks? Okay. So if you have any questions, yeah, I'm still here. So if you want me to ask me in private, I'm ready to answer. But it looks like we're finished. Thanks a lot.